Tonight at Manhattan's most exclusive charity gala, a group of millionaires can't stop laughing at the old man in the worn military uniform. They mock his scuffed shoes, his simple manners, and the way he carefully checks the price of everything. At the auction, someone should tell him this isn't the VFW hall, they snicker, clinking their champagne glasses, but these wealthy elites are about to learn a shocking lesson. The man they're mocking isn't just another retired veteran living on a pension. He's secretly worth billions, and he owns the very foundation hosting this event. They have no idea that their biggest donor is the same man they've been ridiculing all night. What will these arrogant millionaires do when they discover who he really is? Dawn breaks over Brooklyn as James Miller follows the same routine he's maintained for the past 30 years. His modest one-bedroom apartment might seem sparse to others, but to him it holds everything that matters. He stands before the mirror, adjusting his tie with careful precision. The Bronze Star Medal catches the morning light from its place of honor on his dresser, next to a faded photograph of his unit in Vietnam. His weathered hands pause over the medal, remembering the day he earned it. Not for grandstanding heroics, but for saving his entire platoon during a midnight ambush near Da Nang. The citation spoke of exceptional valor, but James had always maintained he just did what needed doing. That philosophy had guided his entire life. The old pickup truck in the parking lot starts on the first try, despite its 15 years. James could afford any car he wanted, but this one serves its purpose just fine. Besides, it helps him blend in at May's diner, where he's had breakfast every morning since Sarah passed. "The usual Mr. Miller?" May herself calls out as he enters, the bell above the door announcing his arrival. She's already pouring his coffee, steam rising from the chipped white mug. "Thank you, May. How's Tommy doing in college?" May's face lights up. What she doesn't know is that her son's full scholarship didn't come from the state university as she believes, but from a private foundation. James sips his coffee, hiding his smile behind the rim of his mug. "He's thriving, Mr. Miller. Made the dean's list last semester." She slides his usual breakfast across the counter. 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, no butter. Though I still don't know how we're managing it all. James nods, his eyes crinkling with genuine warmth. The diner's other regulars, mostly working folks grabbing breakfast before their shifts, greet him with familiar nods. To them, he's just another retiree living on his pension, careful with his money but always generous with his tips. The morning paper sits folded beside his plate. The business section goes untouched. He gets better information from his private advisors. Instead, he focuses on the local news, particularly any stories about veterans struggling to make ends meet. Each article gets carefully marked, the names and situations noted in a small notebook he always carries. His phone buzzes. A text from his account manager about another billion-dollar acquisition. He'll look at it later. Right now, Mrs. Chen at the end of the counter is telling May about her grandson's medical bills. James makes a mental note to have his foundation look into that situation. The Bronze Star weighs heavy in his jacket pocket as he prepares to leave. He always carries it on days like today when he has to enter their world. The world of marble. Lobbies and champagne flutes, not for luck, but as a reminder of who he is and why he does what he does. "You're dressed up fancy today, Mr. Miller," May observes as he pays his bill, leaving his usual generous tip. "Just a charity event," he replies with a slight shrug. "Nothing special." But it is special. Tonight, at the Crystal Ballroom, the Veterans Support Foundation, his foundation, though only 3 people in the world know that, will be hosting its annual fundraising gala. The same foundation that secretly paid for Tommy's college, that will soon help with Mrs. Chen's grandson, that has helped thousands of veterans and their families across the country. Back in his apartment, James opens his closet and removes his dress uniform, still crisp despite its age. Each medal tells a story, not just of war, but of the men and women he served with. Some made it home, many didn't. He made a promise to those who didn't, that their sacrifice would mean something. The uniform still fits perfectly. A general once told him he could have risen through the ranks, become a commander himself, but James had seen enough of war. He returned home, invested wisely, built his fortune quietly, and dedicated it all to keeping his promise. His fingers brush against the Bronze Star one last time before he heads out. Tonight, the wealthy elite of Manhattan will mock his aged uniform, his careful manners, his simple ways. Let them. James Miller learned long ago that true wealth isn't counted in dollars, and real power doesn't need to announce itself. The old pickup truck rumbles to life. In 12 hours, these same people who sneer at his scuffed shoes will discover exactly who they've been mocking. But for now, James Miller drives toward Manhattan, just another veteran going about his day, carrying a billion-dollar secret and a Bronze Star medal in his pocket. In his truck's glove compartment, beneath registration papers and insurance documents, lies a worn leather folder. Inside is the original founding document of the Veterans Support Foundation, its pages yellow with age. James remembers the day he signed it 30 years ago in a small law office in downtown Manhattan. The lawyer had been puzzled by his insistence on anonymity. "Mr. Miller, foundations of this size typically want recognition," she'd said, adjusting her glasses. "The tax benefits alone, the foundation itself needs recognition," James had interrupted quietly. "Not me." It had started with a newspaper article about a veteran living in his car. James had just closed his first major tech investment, turning his careful military pension investments into unexpected millions. He'd tracked down the veteran, arranged housing, helped him find work. But one success story wasn't enough. The foundation grew quietly, efficiently. James built it like a military operation, strategic, methodical, focused on the mission. While other billionaires put their names on buildings, he kept his wealth hidden, using it like a sniper's rifle. Rather than a cannon, precise hits that changed lives without drawing attention. His investment strategy was similarly careful. The same patience that had kept him alive in Vietnam's jungles served him well in the corporate jungle. Buy undervalued companies, improve them slowly, sell at the right moment. His wealth multiplied, and with it, the foundation's reach expanded. The document listed the foundation's core missions: housing for homeless veterans, medical care for the wounded, education for their children, support for families of the fallen. Simple words on paper that translated into thousands of lives changed. Sarah had been his only confidant, helping him manage the foundation until cancer took her 5 years ago. She'd understood his need for anonymity, his desire to help without recognition. "You always were a terrible show-off," she'd teased him, loving him for his humility. The foundation's board of directors had been carefully chosen at first, veterans themselves, people who understood the mission. But as the foundation grew, the board gradually shifted. New members came in, bringing their social connections and fundraising abilities. Slowly, the focus began to drift. James watches the Manhattan skyline grow larger through his windshield. The leather folder's presence reminds him of his purpose. Tonight's gala, with its crystal champagne flutes and designer gowns, seems far removed from the foundation's original mission. The current board sees the foundation as their personal social club, a way to feel good about themselves while networking with Manhattan's elite. They don't know that every report they file, every decision they make, crosses James's desk through back channels. They don't know that their recent attempts to redirect funds toward fashionable charities rather than veteran services have been noted, documented, and added to a growing file. The original document contains one crucial clause that the board has forgotten about. The anonymous founder retains ultimate control. One signature, and the entire board can be replaced. James has never used this power, preferring to work through quiet influence. But tonight might change that. A text message flashes on his phone. Another urgent request from the board about the gala's funding crisis. They've overextended themselves, spent money earmarked for veteran services on elaborate decorations and gourmet catering. They're scrambling to cover the shortfall, unaware that their biggest donor is driving toward them in a 15-year-old pickup truck. James parks in the public garage rather than the valet section. The leather folder goes back into the glove compartment. He knows every word by heart anyway. Tonight, those words will come to life again. The foundation will remember its purpose, one way or another. He straightens his uniform, feels the bronze star in his pocket, and steps out into the Manhattan evening. The original document that started it all rests safely in his truck, but its mission beats in his heart with every step toward the Crystal Ballroom. Time to remind everyone what real wealth is for. The Crystal Ballroom sparkles with old money and new pretensions. At the center of the room, holding court like a queen in her castle, Victoria Pembroke waves her invitation like a scepter as she speaks to her inner circle. Her designer dress costs more than most veterans' yearly pensions, but the foundation's logo pinned to her chest is what really matters to her. It's her ticket into Manhattan's most exclusive social circles. Darlings, you simply must see the guest list for tonight, she gushes, perfectly manicured nails, tracing over names. 3 senators, 5 Fortune 500 CEOs, and, her voice drops conspiratorially, the Harriman family themselves. Around her, the other board members nod appreciatively. There's Charles Winston III, who joined the board because it looked good on his hedge fund's promotional materials. Rebecca St. Clair, whose social media is filled with carefully staged photos. Of her charity work, Thomas Bradford, who uses foundation events to network for his law firm. None of them notice the servers avoiding their eyes, the veterans hired as security standing straighter as James Miller walks past, or the event coordinator's quiet sigh of relief at his arrival. To them, he's just another charity case, someone who got an invitation through one of those community outreach programs Victoria is always going on about. Who invited him? Rebecca whispers, not quite quietly enough, as James studies the silent auction items. He's actually checking the minimum bids. How embarrassing. Probably that dreadful Veterans Affairs liaison, Victoria replies. She's always trying to make things so authentic. She says the word like it's something distasteful she found on her shoe. Charles Winston III swirls his champagne, watching James through narrowed eyes. Speaking of authentic, we need to discuss the funding situation. The Veterans Housing Project in Brooklyn is eating up resources we could use for more strategic initiatives, like the celebrity golf tournament. Thomas Bradford perks up. Excellent networking opportunity, plus great photo ops. Victoria nods sagely. We need to maintain a certain image. Veterans housing is all well and good, but it doesn't attract the right kind of donors. We need glamour, darling. Style. They don't notice James within earshot, noting every word in his mental file. They don't see the retired Marine working security grip his earpiece tighter, or the flicker of recognition in the eyes of an elderly server who once received housing assistance from the foundation. Did you see his shoes? Rebecca continues, voice dripping with disdain. At least he could have polished them for an event like this. Those shoes had trudged through Vietnamese jungles, carried wounded comrades to safety, and now walk quietly through the marble halls of power. But the elite circle sees only scuffs and age. I heard the Foundation's mysterious founder might make an appearance tonight, Charles mentions, changing the subject. 30 years of absolute anonymity. Must be some reclusive tech billionaire with social anxiety. Victoria preens. Well, when they do finally show themselves, they'll see how we've elevated their little charity into something truly spectacular. I mean, just look at this event. The event that's currently underwater financially, though they're all pretending not to notice. The event whose decorating budget alone could have housed 10 homeless veterans for a year. The event that's about to change everything they think they know about power and wealth. James moves to another auction item, a luxury watch worth more than a combat veteran's annual disability payment. He makes a small note in his program, causing Victoria to roll her eyes dramatically. Someone should tell him the prizes aren't priced in military pension dollars, she stage whispers, drawing titters from her circle. A young server approaches their group with champagne. James recognizes him. His college tuition was paid by a mysterious scholarship last year. The server's hands tremble slightly as he hears them mock the man responsible for changing his life. The elite circle continues their comfortable bubble of self-congratulation, unaware that every dismissive word, every condescending glance, every misplaced priority is being recorded in the memory of the man they're mocking. They've forgotten the Foundation's true purpose, forgotten that real power often comes wrapped in humble packages. James checks his watch, the same reliable Timex he's worn for decades. Soon, very soon, they'll learn what real wealth looks like. But for now, he lets them drink their champagne and play their social games, waiting for the moment when their glittering bubble finally bursts. From his carefully chosen position near the ornate columns, James watches the gala unfold like a tactical operation. His small notebook, bound in worn leather and barely larger than a passport, rests discreetly in his hand. To anyone watching, he might be noting auction items or writing down donation pledges. In reality, he's documenting everything. 20 minutes ago, Victoria Pembroke authorized an additional $10,000 for crystal champagne flutes. We simply can't serve in the regular ones, she'd told the harried event coordinator. Image is everything. The same amount could have covered emergency dental work for 3 veterans. 40 minutes ago, Charles Winston III cornered a junior board member about the PR disaster of spending too much on direct veteran aid. Nobody wants to see homeless people at galas, he'd said. We need to focus on attracting the right crowd. James's pen moves quietly across the paper, each observation written in the same precise handwriting he'd used for mission reports in Vietnam. Names, times, exact quotes. The notebook is nearly full. 3 months of similar events, similar conversations, similar misplaced priorities. A young veteran hired as security catches his eye and gives a subtle nod. James had arranged his hiring through back channels, along with several other veterans working the event. They're his eyes and ears, though they don't know exactly who he is. They just know him as the old vet who helps people find work. Mr. Miller? A quiet voice interrupts his observations. It's Susan Chen, the Foundation's Veterans Affairs Liaison, the only board member who actually visits the shelters and housing projects. I thought you might like to know. We just lost the funding for the PTSD counseling program. James looks up from his notebook. How? The board voted to reallocate the funds. They're planning to announce a new Veterans Awareness Golf Classic instead. Her voice carries the weight of too many similar defeats. Apparently, it has better networking potential. He notes this in his book, keeping his face carefully neutral. Susan's doing her best, fighting a lonely battle against the board's shifting priorities. She doesn't know she has a powerful ally, watching and documenting everything. Across the room, Thomas Bradford is bragging about his new yacht to a cluster of potential donors. The yacht's cost could have funded the PTSD program for 5 years. James writes this down too, along with the exact time and who was present for the conversation. The notebook holds other details too. The Veteran Suicide Prevention Hotline facing budget cuts while the board approves first-class travel to charity conferences in exotic locations. Housing projects delayed because funds were diverted to celebrity endorsements. Medical assistance programs shortened to pay for promotional videos. A server passes with fresh champagne, Kevin Rodriguez, whose mother received emergency housing assistance last year. He gives James a respectful nod, having no idea that the signature on his mother's grant paperwork matches the handwriting in the small notebook. Victoria's voice carries across the room. The foundation's founder would be so proud of how we've elevated their vision. James allows himself a small smile as he writes down her exact words. The irony would be amusing, if it weren't so tragic. His phone buzzes, another financial alert. The board's attempt to cover their extravagant spending is creating ripples in the foundation's accounts. They're moving money from veteran service budgets to pay for tonight's excesses, thinking no one will notice. Every transaction is noted. In his book, James closes the notebook as Rebecca St. Clair sashays past, wrapping up what appears to be a social media live stream. "Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more of my charity work," she chirps to her phone. He makes a mental note. Tomorrow, he'll have his team calculate exactly how much of the foundation's money she's spent on social media consultants. The notebook slides back into his pocket, joining the bronze star. Soon, very soon, every observation, every documented abuse of power, every misused dollar will come to light. But for now, James Miller maintains his cover, watching, waiting and recording, just as he'd done on long nights in the jungle, preparing for the perfect moment to strike. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The weight of the photograph in his inner jacket pocket feels as heavy as his bronze star. James finds a quiet corner of the ballroom, away from the sparkle and chatter, and carefully removes the worn image. Sarah smiles up at him, caught in a moment from 20 years ago, standing in front of their first veterans shelter. She'd been a nurse at the VA when they met, dedicated to helping returning soldiers heal both visible and invisible wounds. These men and women gave everything for their country, she'd told him on their first date. "The least we can do is make sure they're not forgotten." The photograph captures her radiant smile as she holds the shelter's keys. Behind her, a converted brownstone stands proud. Their first major project together, they'd bought it quietly, through a shell corporation, renovated it secretly, and handed it over to the foundation. 30 veterans found homes there that first year. "Is that your wife, Mr. Miller?" Susan Chen appears beside him, her voice soft with genuine interest rather than the practiced sympathy of the other board members. "Sarah," he says, allowing himself to remember. "She passed 5 years ago. I'm so sorry." Susan studies the photograph. "Is that the McKinley Street shelter?" James nods, surprised. Most current board members don't even know about the foundation's first property. "I did my research when I joined the board," Susan explains. "That shelter set the standard for all our housing programs. Well, before the recent changes." Her voice trails off, heavy with frustration. The photograph holds more memories than just the shelter. It was Sarah who'd first suggested complete anonymity for their giving. "Money changes how people act," she'd observed, "but it doesn't change who they are. It reveals it." How right she'd been. The current board proves it every day, revealing their true characters through their actions. Sarah would have seen through their polished veneers immediately. "You know," Susan continues, "there's something strange about that shelter's paperwork. The ownership traces back through a maze of corporations, but the original purchase," she pauses, studying James with new interest. He carefully returns the photograph to his pocket. Sarah would have liked Susan, someone else who does their homework, who cares about the mission more than the social status it brings. Victoria Pembroke's voice carries across the room. "We simply must phase out those dreary shelters. They're not photogenic enough for our new social media campaign." James feels Sarah's absence like a physical ache. She would have handled this situation with more grace than he's about to. She always said he had a bit of a dramatic streak, despite his quiet demeanor. "The shelter residents are real people," Susan protests, but Victoria has already swept away, trailing sycophants in her wake. The photograph sits close to his heart, next to the notebook full of evidence. Sarah had been the one to suggest documenting everything, building a case methodically. "If you ever need to take back control," she'd said, "do it right." A server, another veteran, James notes, passes with canapes that cost more than a month's worth of meals at any of their shelters. The board's priorities are clear in every crystal glass, every gold leaf decoration, every carefully curated social media moment. Sometimes, Susan says quietly, I wish the founder would finally show up and see what's happening to their foundation. James touches the spot where the photograph rests. Maybe they already have. She looks at him sharply, but he's already moving away, blending back into the crowd. The photograph's presence reminds him of his promise to Sarah, to protect their mission, to help their veterans, to do what's right even when it's hard. Tonight, he'll keep that promise. Sarah's smile in the photograph, forever captured in that moment of pure purpose, will guide him through what's coming. The foundation will remember its roots one way or another. The crisis begins with a phone call. Charles Winston III steps away from his champagne circle, face darkening as he listens to his Bluetooth earpiece. James, still maintaining his quiet vigil, notices the subtle tells of a man receiving very bad news. The tightening jaw, the whitening knuckles around the phone, the slight tremor in his usually steady hand. What do you mean, insufficient funds? Charles hisses into his phone. The gala payments were supposed to clear this morning. Victoria notices the commotion and glides over, her social smile never wavering. But James sees her eyes, sharp, worried, calculating. She knows something's wrong. Show me the report, she demands after Charles ends his call. They huddle over his phone, faces illuminated by its glow. The financial report that's causing such distress is one James knows intimately. He'd watched it being compiled in real time through his private access to the foundation's accounts. This is impossible, Victoria whispers, her perfect composure cracking slightly. We moved the funds from the veterans' programs. Everything should be covered. Rebecca St. Clair joins them, still filming herself for social media. Darlings, what's wrong? You look positively. She stops abruptly as Charles shows her the phone. Her live stream continues broadcasting, forgotten in her shock. The report is devastating in its simplicity. The foundation's main accounts are nearly empty. The veterans' program funds they'd borrowed from are mysteriously restricted, locked behind financial firewalls they didn't even know existed. The gala's expensive vendors are demanding payment, and there's nothing left to pay them with. The caterers are threatening to walk out. Thomas Bradford approaches, his face ashen. The alcohol supplier just called. They want payment now, or they're taking everything back. James watches the panic spread through the elite circle like ripples in a pond. His phone buzzes with another alert, one of his financial teammates, confirming that all the foundation's legitimate programs are safely protected. The only money the board can access is what they've already spent on tonight's extravaganza. What about the emergency fund? Victoria demands, her voice rising slightly. The one we never touch? Tried it, Charles replies grimly. Access denied. Some kind of automated security protocol we've never seen before. Susan Chen approaches cautiously, drawn by the obvious distress of her fellow board members. Is everything all right? No! Victoria snaps, then quickly composes herself as nearby guests turn to look. More quietly, every account we try to access is either empty or locked. It's like someone knew what we were doing and set a trap. James makes another note in his book. The truth is, he'd seen this coming months ago when they first started siphoning money from veteran services to fund their social climbing. Each transaction had been monitored, documented, and allowed to proceed just long enough to create an undeniable paper trail. The founder's account, Rebecca suggests desperately. The one that makes those anonymous donations every year. Maybe we could. Already tried, Charles cuts her off. Nothing, no response to any messages. The financial report on Charles's phone shows the full scope of their mismanagement in clean, crisp numbers. $3 million spent on tonight's gala. $5 million diverted from veteran housing projects, $2 million allocated to social media awareness campaigns. Every questionable decision, every misused dollar laid bare in black and white. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria's voice carries across the ballroom, perfectly modulated to project calm authority. Please continue enjoying your evening. Just a small technical issue being resolved. But the servers have already noticed something's wrong. The veterans, working security, are exchanging knowing looks. The carefully maintained illusion of prosperity and control is beginning to crack. James feels the weight of his notebook, filled with evidence of their misdeeds, and the photograph of Sarah next. To his heart, the board's chickens are coming home to roost, their house of cards beginning to sway. Soon, very soon, they'll learn the true cost of forgetting the Foundation's mission. Someone has to be behind this, Thomas mutters, loosening his bow tie. This level of financial lockdown, it's coordinated, deliberate. He's right, of course. James had spent months planning this moment, setting up the financial tripwires that would spring when they tried one too many times to misuse the Foundation's resources. Now they're caught in a trap of their own making, their desperation growing by the minute. The old veteran in the worn uniform continues his quiet observation, watching the elite circle's perfect world crumble one locked account at a time. The crisis they've created is about to become an opportunity, a chance to remind everyone what the Veteran Support Foundation really stands for. James's phone buzzes again. This time it's his private banker at Goldman Sachs. The message is simple. Everything in position, sir, awaiting your signal. He allows himself a small smile. The bank statement displayed on his secure phone app shows numbers that would make even Charles Winston III's eyes water. Billions in liquid assets, ready to deploy at a moment's notice. The elite circle's panic is spreading, though they're trying desperately to maintain their composure. Victoria keeps glancing at the kitchen doors, knowing the caterers are close to walking out. Charles is making increasingly frantic calls to his financial contacts. Rebecca has finally stopped her live stream, her perfectly manicured fingers trembling as she texts her social media team to delay posting about the gala. "The vendors are giving us 1 hour," Thomas announces in a harsh whisper. After that, they're shutting everything down and calling the media. A scandal like this would destroy more than just the Foundation's reputation. Board members' personal reputations, business connections, social standing, all carefully built over years of networking and social climbing, would crumble overnight. Susan Chen approaches James again, her eyes worried but determined. "Mr. Miller, something's very wrong. The veterans' program accounts, the ones they've been draining, they're suddenly protected. It's like someone's been watching, waiting for this moment. Is that right?" James keeps his voice neutral, but he sees the intelligence in her eyes. Of all the board members, she's the closest to putting the pieces together. His phone displays another alert. His team has documented every attempt by the board to access restricted funds in the past hour. Each desperate try adds another piece of evidence to the already substantial file. The same quiet efficiency that helped him build his fortune is now systematically exposing their mismanagement. Victoria storms past, her composure finally cracking. "This is impossible. Even the founder's private line is blocked. 30 years of anonymous donations, and now, when we actually need them..." She doesn't finish the thought. She doesn't need to. The Foundation's mysterious founder has always been their safety net, appearing like magic with donations whenever funds ran low, but not tonight. Tonight, the safety net has vanished. James watches a veteran security guard help an elderly donor with her coat. The guard's prosthetic leg catches the light. He'd received it through one of the Foundation's medical assistance programs, one of the many the board had voted to cut. The guard's quiet dignity stands in stark contrast to the board's growing desperation. A text from his corporate lawyers confirms everything is in place. One signature from him would be enough to remove the entire board, restore the foundation's original mission, and ensure its resources return to helping veterans rather than funding social climbing. The bank statement on his phone shows the accumulation of 30 years of careful investment. Technology ventures, real estate holdings, market plays that turned millions into billions. But unlike the other wealthy elites in the room, James had never forgotten what money was for. Every dollar earned meant another veteran housed, another family supported, another life changed. Thomas Bradford's voice rises in frustration as another call fails. No one will extend us credit. It's like we've been blacklisted. Even my own bank won't take my calls. James had made sure of that. His financial influence reaches far beyond the foundation's accounts. When you control billions in investments and sit on the boards of major banks, even if anonymously, people tend to listen when you suggest certain calls should go unanswered. Victoria gathers the board for an emergency meeting in a corner of the ballroom. Their whispered conversation carries the edge of panic. They're running out of options, running out of time. Soon, they'll have to face the consequences of their choices. Susan watches them with a mixture of disgust and sadness. The foundation used to stand for something, she tells James. Now look at them, more worried about their social media presence than the veterans they're supposed to help. James feels the bronze star in his pocket, the photograph against his heart, the notebook full of evidence. The time is coming to reveal his hidden strength, to remind everyone what real power looks like. Not the power of social connections or designer clothes or viral posts, but the power to change lives, to keep promises, to honor sacrifices made. His phone shows one last message. All systems ready. The trap is set. The evidence is compiled. The resources are in place. Now it's just a matter of timing. The caterers make their move first. Their manager, a sharp-suited woman with a tablet in hand, approaches Victoria and the board with the kind of determined stride that means business. Mrs. Pembroke, I need your immediate attention. We require payment now, or we're shutting down service. Victoria's smile has become brittle, desperate. Surely we can discuss this privately. $3 million. The manager cuts her off. Due now, not in an hour, not tomorrow, now. The number sends ripples through the gathered crowd. $3 million for a single evening's entertainment. More than the foundation's entire annual budget for veteran housing assistance. James watches faces in the crowd shift from curiosity to confusion to dawning outrage. Perhaps, Charles Winston III steps forward, we could offer you something in lieu of immediate payment. Stock options, perhaps? I have connections. Cash or transfer only, the manager replies flatly. And the bar service is prepared to remove all alcohol within the next 15 minutes without payment. Susan Chen stands near James, watching the scene unfold. 3 million, she whispers. Do you know how many veterans that could help? James knows exactly. His notebook contains precise figures. 3 million would fund the PTSD counseling program for 2 years, house 40 homeless. Veterans provide medical care for hundreds. Instead, it's being demanded for champagne and canapes. The legal documents that would give him control are ready on his phone, waiting for his digital signature. One press of his finger would end this charade, but James waits, letting the moment build. Sometimes, as he learned in Vietnam, the perfect shot requires perfect patience. Victoria's composure finally shatters completely. This is ridiculous. Where is the founder? 30 years of support, and now, when we actually need them for what? Exactly. Susan's voice cuts through the tension. To bail out a $3 million party while our veterans sleep on streets. The other guests are watching now, phones recording the unfolding drama. Rebecca St. Clair's social media nightmare is becoming reality in real time. You don't understand, Thomas Bradford attempts to salvage the situation. The foundation's image. A new voice joins in, Kevin Rodriguez, the young veteran server whose mother received housing assistance. I thought it was about helping veterans. That's how my family got help when we needed it. More voices join in. The security guards, the servers, the veterans in the crowd, all recipients of the Foundation's original mission, all watching its current leadership implode. Charles Winston III makes one last desperate play. If the founder would just respond to our messages, oh, I've been receiving them. James's voice carries across the suddenly silent ballroom. He steps forward, reaches into his jacket, and pulls out not his bronze star, but a leather wallet. From it, he removes a business card, a simple white card with a single name and title, James Miller, founder and chairman, Veterans Support Foundation. The shock ripples through the room like a shockwave. Victoria's champagne glass slips from nerveless fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Charles Winston III's face goes from red to white in an instant. Rebecca St. Clair's phone tumbles from her shaking hands. That's impossible, Thomas Bradford stammers. The founder is standing right here, James finishes quietly. In this worn uniform, with these scuffed shoes you've been mocking all night. Susan Chen's sharp intake of breath is followed by a slow, understanding smile. The McKinley Street shelter paperwork. I knew something was familiar about your name. You can't be, Victoria manages to say. You're just a veteran. James's voice carries an edge now. Like the ones this foundation was created to help. The ones whose housing you cut to pay for this party. The ones whose medical care you redirected to fund your social media campaigns. He pulls out his phone, opens his banking app, and turns it toward them. The number displayed causes audible gasps. Billions in personal wealth, carefully hidden all these years. The caterers will be paid, he continues calmly. The bar service will continue. The gala will go on. But tomorrow morning, there will be changes. The legal documents await his signature. The evidence in his notebook demands justice. The photograph of Sarah reminds him of their shared mission. But first, these people need to understand exactly who they've been mocking, and exactly what real wealth and power look like when wielded with purpose instead of pride. The silence that follows James's revelation lasts exactly 3 seconds before the room erupts. Phones emerge from pockets and clutches like flowers blooming in fast motion. The story is too good not to share. The billionaire founder of the Veterans Support Foundation, secretly attending his own gala in a worn military uniform, watching the board members mock him to his face. Victoria recovers first, her social training kicking in. She steps forward with an outstretched hand and a brilliant smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Mr. Miller, what a wonderful surprise. We had no idea. Yes, you did. James's voice is quiet but carries across the now hushed room. Every time you mocked this uniform, you knew exactly what it meant. Every time you redirected funds from veteran services, you knew exactly who you were hurting. You just never thought you'd have to answer for it. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out his security badge. Not the event badge they'd given him at the door, but his founder's ID, unused for 30 years. The holographic seal catches the light, unmistakable and damning. Charles Winston III attempts damage control. Sir, if you'll allow me to explain our vision for modernizing. Modernizing, James interrupts. Is that what you call cutting? The PTSD counseling program to fund a golf tournament, or cancelling housing assistance to pay for social media consultants? The young server, Kevin Rodriguez, steps forward. Sir, I didn't know it was you who helped my mom. The housing assistance, the job training program. James nods to him. How is your mother doing, Kevin? She's great, sir. Working as a nurse now, thanks to the training program. He pauses, then adds pointedly, the same program the board voted to end last month. Victoria's perfect smile cracks slightly. Rebecca St. Clair is frantically typing on her phone, trying to get ahead of the story. Thomas Bradford has pulled out his lawyer's card, but his hand shakes as he holds it. Susan Chen moves to stand beside James. I knew something wasn't right with the foundation's direction, but I never imagined. She looks at him with new understanding. You've been watching all along, haven't you? Every diverted dollar, every cut program, every veteran turned away. James's voice remains calm, but carries an undertone of steel. I watched you turn a foundation for helping veterans into your personal networking club. The security guards, all veterans, all recipients of the foundation's help, have moved closer, forming a subtle barrier between James and the board members. Their faces show a mixture of respect and vindication. The Founders Anonymous donation, Charles says suddenly, the one that arrives every year. That was you using your own money to cover our... He can't finish the sentence. Your overspending, your mismanagement, yes. James pulls out his phone again, displaying a banking app. Would you like to see exactly how much of my personal fortune I've spent covering your mistakes? The number. He shows them, causes several sharp intakes of breath. Victoria actually takes a step backward, her social poise deserting her completely. But why? Rebecca bursts out. Why let us run things if you could? Because the Foundation's mission was more important than my ego, James cuts her off. Because every minute you spent planning parties and posting on social media was a minute you weren't interfering with the real work being done quietly, behind the scenes. He turns to address the whole room now. While you were planning golf tournaments, my real team was housing veterans. While you were hiring social media consultants, we were funding medical care. While you were building your personal brands, we were rebuilding lives. The caterer's manager approaches again, tablet in hand. James handles the payment with a single tap on his phone, adding a generous tip for the staff. The contrast between his efficient handling of millions and the board's earlier panic is lost on no one. Tomorrow morning, he announces quietly, there will be an emergency board meeting. Attendance is mandatory. For now, he surveys the silent crowd, the shamed board members, the vindicated veterans. For now, let's remember why we're really here. This foundation has work to do. The security badge in his hand catches the light. Again, a symbol of authority finally reclaimed. The masks are off, the truth is out, and the real power in the room stands revealed, not in designer clothes or social connections, but in a worn uniform and a lifetime of quiet service. The board. Room at the Crystal Ballroom feels more like a courtroom now. James sits at the head of the table, the Foundation's charter open before him. The document's legal power had always been there, waiting like a sword above the board's heads. Now, that sword is finally falling. Victoria tries one last time to seize control of the narrative. Mr. Miller, surely we can discuss this like reasonable people. The Foundation's public image. Let's discuss reasonable things. James interrupts, his voice carrying the same quiet authority that once commanded. Troops in combat. Let's discuss the 40 veterans denied housing last month because you needed a new website. Or the families turned away from the medical assistance program because you wanted a celebrity endorsement. He opens his notebook, decades of military precision evident in his methodical documentation. June 15th. Board votes to cut PTSD counseling. Budget by 60%. Same day, approves $200,000 for a social media consultant. July 3rd. Veterans Job Training Program suspended. Same day, $150,000 approved for a promotional video. The evidence continues, each entry a nail in the board's coffin. Charles Winston III shifts uncomfortably in his Italian leather chair. Rebecca Sinclair has stopped checking her phone, her influencer persona crumbling under the weight of real consequences. The Foundation's charter, James continues, tapping the document, gives me the right to dissolve the board at any time. I've waited, watched, documented, not out of weakness, but because I wanted to give you every chance to remember our mission. Thomas Bradford, the lawyer, sees an opening. The charter requires cause for removal. Cause? James's voice sharpens. He pulls out his phone, projects financial records onto the boardroom's screen. $3 million for tonight's gala, $5 million diverted from veteran services, $2 million on social media campaigns. Would you like me to continue? Susan Chen, sitting at James's right hand now, adds her own evidence. I have documentation of every veteran turned away while the board approved these expenses. Names, faces, stories. Victoria's mask finally cracks completely. You can't just throw away years of social connections. The networking opportunities. Networking. James stands slowly, his presence filling the room. Let me tell you about networking. Every morning, I have breakfast at May's Diner. The waitress there, her son is in college because of a foundation scholarship. The cook's brother got housing assistance after serving in Afghanistan. The dishwasher's wife received medical care through our program. He moves around the table, his worn shoes silent on the expensive carpet. That's networking. Real connections, real impact, not champagne parties and golf tournaments. Rebecca tries one last angle, but our social media reach. James pulls out another document, letters, hundreds of them, from veterans and families helped by the foundation. This is reach. Lives changed, families supported, veterans honored, not with hashtags, but with real help. Charles Winston III finally breaks. What do you want from us? I want you to understand what you've forgotten. James returns to his seat, takes out the photograph of Sarah. My wife and I built this foundation to help the men and women who served their country, not to boost your social status or pad your resumes. He lays out the new terms with military precision. The entire board will resign. The foundation will return to its original mission. The millions diverted will be repaid from their personal accounts. A fact that makes several board members blanch. You have a choice, he concludes. Resign now, repay what you've taken, and this stays private. Fight me, and everything in this notebook becomes public. Your reputations, your social standing, your business connections, all of it ends tonight. The room falls silent. The board members look at each other, their carefully constructed world crumbling around them. They've finally met real power, not the power of money or social influence, but the quiet strength of a man who never forgot his mission. The papers are ready, Susan says, distributing resignation documents. I suggest you sign them. One by one, pens scratch on paper. Signatures that once approved wasteful spending now surrender ill-gotten authority. The sword has fallen, and with it, the masks of power these people had hidden behind. James watches them sign, the bronze star heavy in his pocket. Tomorrow, the real work begins again. The foundation will return to its roots, helping veterans not for show, but because it's right. Because some promises, like the ones made in combat, must be kept at any cost. By midnight, the story has taken on a life of its own. The press release, crafted with the same precision James once used to plan military operations, hits every major news outlet simultaneously. Veterans Support Foundation founder reveals identity, announces return to core mission. The headlines spread across social media like wildfire. The Crystal Ballroom has emptied of its elite crowd, but a different energy fills the space now. The veterans who worked security gather around James, each with a story to tell. Kevin Rodriguez brings his mother, who drove in as soon as she heard the news. She hugs James tightly, whispering thank yous for the housing assistance that changed their lives. "Sir," one of the security guards says, his prosthetic leg glinting under the chandelier lights, "we always knew someone had to be fighting for us behind the scenes. We just never knew who." Susan Chen works efficiently at a corner table, already coordinating with James's real team, the quiet professionals who've been running the foundation's actual programs while the board played at charity. Emergency housing requests that had been denied are being fast-tracked. Medical assistance applications are being reviewed. The machine is humming back to life, restored to its true purpose. Victoria Pembroke's hasty exit interview with the press plays on someone's phone. This was a mutual decision, stepping down to pursue other opportunities. The words ring hollow against the reality of her signed resignation letter, still warm from the printer upstairs. James's phone hasn't stopped buzzing. not with panicked board members anymore, but with messages from veterans organizations across the country. The news has spread through the community like a signal flare. Help is coming back. The foundation is returning to its roots. The morning show's all want interviews, Susan informs him, tablet in hand. They're fascinated by the billionaire who's been hiding in plain sight, helping veterans while living like one. James shakes his head. The story isn't about me, it's about them. He gestures to the veterans in the room, to the letters from families helped, to the programs about to be restored. Make sure they understand that. Charles Winston III's parting words echo in his mind. You could have stopped us at any time. Why wait? The answer was simple. Sometimes the best way to expose corruption is to let it fully reveal itself. Sometimes the strongest statement is made not by shouting, but by quietly standing your ground. Rebecca St. Clair's final Instagram post flashes across social media, a carefully worded apology, an admission of lost perspective, a promise to do better. For once, her words seem genuine, stripped of filters and hashtags. The truth has a way of doing that, of cutting through pretense to what matters. A group of veteran advocacy organizations has already reached out, offering to help rebuild the foundation's programs. James recognizes their names. Many of them received anonymous donations from him over the years. Parallel channels of support, while the board played their social games. Thomas Bradford's legal threats proved empty against the mountain of evidence in James's notebook. The paper trail was too clear, the misconduct too blatant. In the end, he signed his resignation with the others, his legal expertise useless against simple, documented truth. The catering staff begins cleaning up, supervised by their manager, who now looks at James with newfound respect. He makes sure they know the generous tip came from his personal account, not the foundation's funds. Every dollar of the foundation's money has a purpose, a mission, a promise to keep. Sarah's photograph seems to smile up at him from his pocket. She would have loved this moment, not the confrontation or the revelations, but the return to purpose. The foundation finding its way home. We've already received 50 new applications for assistance, Susan reports, her eyes bright with purpose. Veterans who've been waiting, hoping the foundation would remember them. Process them all, James says quietly. Priority to the most urgent cases. And Susan, he pauses, thank you for never losing sight of the mission. The Bronze Star in his pocket feels lighter now, its weight shared with a new generation of supporters. The foundation's future stretches out before him, clearer than ever. Not as a social club or a networking opportunity, but as what it was always meant to be, a promise kept to those who served, a hand extended to those who gave everything for their country. Tomorrow, the real work begins again. But tonight, in the emptying Crystal Ballroom, justice has been served in the quietest way possible, by simply letting truth speak for itself. Dawn breaks over Manhattan as James reviews the foundation's true state in his modest office. Not the luxurious boardroom upstairs, but a simple space filled with files and photographs of veterans helped over the years. The Veteran Support Program's binder before him tells the real story of what's been lost and what must be rebuilt. The damage goes deeper than we thought, Susan reports, spreading documents across his desk. They didn't just cut programs. They dismantled entire support networks. The housing coordinator position has been vacant for 6 months. The medical liaison office was turned into a social media studio. James nods, making notes in his familiar notebook. How many veterans are currently on the emergency housing waitlist? 237. Susan's voice carries the weight of each number. Another 150 need urgent medical care. The job training program has a backlog of over 300 applications. The morning sun catches the Bronze Star on his desk as James studies the numbers. Each figure represents a veteran in need, a promise broken by the previous board's vanity. The real battle isn't against the former board members, it's against time. against systems that forgot their purpose, against the easy comfort of looking away. "Sir?" Kevin Rodriguez appears at the door, still in his server's uniform from the night before. "There are some people here you should meet." He ushers in a group of veterans, men and women of different ages and backgrounds, all bearing the invisible weights of service. James recognizes them from their applications, all denied by the previous board. "Maria Gonzalez," Susan whispers, are passing him a file. 3 tours in Afghanistan. Denied housing assistance last month. Maria steps forward, standing at parade rest, out of habit. "Sir, we heard about what happened last night. About who you really are. We needed to know if there's hope again." James stands, his worn uniform matching theirs in spirit, if not in branch of service. "Tell me your stories," he says. "All of them. The real battle starts now." For the next hour, he listens. Each story strikes like an artillery shell against the Foundation's recent failures. A Marine who needs surgery the VA won't cover. An Army sergeant living in his car while working 2 jobs. A Navy corpsman whose PTSD treatment was interrupted when the Foundation cut its mental health program. The Foundation's real assets aren't in its bank accounts, James tells them, pulling up the Foundation's secure files on his computer. "They're in its promises kept. Starting today, we rebuild everything." Susan works rapidly at her tablet, coordinating with James's trusted team across the country. Emergency housing units are located. Medical providers are contacted. Job training programs are reactivated. The machinery of real help whirs back to life, powered not by social media likes, but by genuine commitment. "We'll need a new board," Susan points out. "People who understand the mission." James looks at the veterans in his office. "I'm looking at them. Who better to guide this foundation than those who've lived its purpose?" Maria Gonzalez straightens. "Sir, we don't know anything about running a foundation." "You know what veterans need," James replies. "You know the difference between real help and empty gestures. The rest can be learned." His phone buzzes. More press requests, more interview opportunities. He ignores them. The real story isn't in the billionaire's revelation, it's in the work that needs doing. The Foundation's true power was never in its glamorous galas or social connections. It was in the quiet moments. A veteran receiving keys to a new home, a family getting much-needed medical care, a soldier finding purpose in civilian life. The previous board saw veterans as photo opportunities, James says, standing to address the room. "We're going to see them as what they are, our brothers and sisters who answered the call to serve. Every decision we make, every dollar we spend, every program we run will answer one question. Does this help them?" The sun climbs higher over Manhattan, but in this modest office, a different kind of light grows. It's in Maria's eyes, as she learns she'll have a home by nightfall. It's in the Marine's face as his surgery is scheduled. It's in the Navy corpsman's posture as his treatment program is reinstated. "This is the real battle," James tells them, his quiet voice carrying the weight of decades of service. Not against budgets or bureaucracy, but for the soul of what this foundation means. And like every battle worth fighting, we'll win it together. The new board charter sits unopened on James's desk as he considers an unexpected request. Rebecca St. Clair stands before him, markedly different from the social media influencer of yesterday. Her designer outfit is gone, replaced by simple business attire. Her phone remains in her purse, not in her hand. "You want to stay with the Foundation?" James asks quietly, studying her face for any trace of the old superficiality. "Not as a board member," Rebecca replies, her voice carrying an unfamiliar humility. "I've been reading the files, the real files, about the veterans we turned away. I want to help fix what we broke, even if that means starting at the bottom." James shares a glance with Susan, who's been vetting similar requests all morning. Most of the old board members simply disappeared into their privileged lives, but a few have returned, changed by the truth they witnessed. "Why should we trust you?" Maria Gonzalez asks from her new position as housing coordinator. The former Marine's directness cuts through any pretense. Rebecca takes a deep breath. Because I was wrong. Because I forgot what wealth was for. Because... She pulls out her own notebook. Not a social media planner, but pages of research on veteran support programs. Because I want to learn to do this right. James picks up the new board charter. Its pages outline a different kind of foundation. One where success is measured in lives changed, not social media followers. Where accountability means facing the people you help, not just filing reports. It won't be glamorous, he warns. No galas, no influencer posts, no networking events, just hard work helping veterans rebuild their lives. I understand, Rebecca nods. I've already deleted my social media accounts. Some things matter more than followers. The transformation reminds James of soldiers he'd known, how combat had stripped away their pretenses, revealed their true character. Sometimes it takes a profound shock to rediscover what's real. Thomas Bradford appears in... The doorway also changed. Gone is the slick lawyer's polish, replaced by genuine concern. I've been reviewing the legal barriers veterans face accessing their benefits, he reports. If you'll let me, I'd like to help build a proper legal aid program. James considers them both. The Foundation's new direction is clear. Programs focused on direct support, housing initiatives, medical care, job training. But perhaps there's room for redemption too, for those willing to embrace the true mission. Show us, he says finally. Not with words or promises. Show us with actions. The Foundation needs people who understand both worlds. The one veterans face and the one with the resources to help them. Susan pulls up the Foundation's new organizational chart. We have entry-level positions in program coordination. You'll work directly with veterans, learn their needs firsthand. After 6 months, we can review your progress. Rebecca and Thomas exchange glances, perhaps remembering their former boardroom authority. But something has shifted in them. The shock of truth has cracked their privileged shells, revealing something worth salvaging. When can we start? Rebecca asks. Right now, Maria answers, handing them each a stack of files. We have 200 veterans waiting for housing. Start calling landlords, coordinating inspections, arranging moves. Show us what you can really do. James watches them take the files, sees the weight of responsibility replace their former arrogance. Real wealth, he reflects, isn't in knowing how to attend galas. It's in knowing how to help others. Sometimes those who've lost their way can find it again if given the chance. The new board charter represents this philosophy. Its pages detail not just programs and policies, but values, accountability, service, humility. The Foundation's future will be built on these principles, whether carried forward by veterans who understand sacrifice or former socialites who've learned its meaning. The Foundation's strength was never in its social connections, James tells them. It was in its ability to change lives, including sometimes the lives of those doing the helping. Rebecca and Thomas nod, understanding dawning in their eyes. They've been offered not just jobs, but a chance to redefine their own meaning of success, to discover what real influence looks like, not in followers or billable hours, but in veterans sleeping safely, families healing, lives rebuilding. The morning sun throws their shadows long across the office floor. Somewhere in Manhattan, other former board members are probably already planning their next social climbing venture. But here, in this moment, redemption takes root in unexpected soil. The thank you letters begin arriving a week later. Not the formal, typed acknowledgements of the old Foundation, but real messages written by real people. They pile up on James's desk. Handwritten notes, children's drawings, photographs of families in their new homes. Found permanent housing for the Martinez family today, Rebecca reports, her former social media obsession now channeled into tracking success stories. Their daughter made this for you. She hands James a crayon drawing of a house with a flag out front. The Foundation's offices hum with purposeful activity. Thomas Bradford's legal aid program has already helped 50 veterans navigate the VA benefits maze. Maria Gonzalez's housing initiative has cleared half the emergency waiting list. The machine runs not on champagne and caviar now, but on commitment and care. Mr. Miller? A familiar voice draws his attention. May from the diner stands in his doorway, tears in her eyes. I just found out it was you. All these years, helping Tommy with college, helping all of us. James rises to greet her, but she's already crossing the room to hug him. The Foundation's education program just approved 15 more scholarships, he tells her. Kids of veterans, like Tommy. The breakfast crowd at the diner's been talking about nothing else, May says. About how the real billionaire was sitting. There all along, just quietly helping people. Susan appears with more files. Success stories now, not evidence of misconduct. The old board's final audit is complete, she reports. Every misused dollar has been repaid. Victoria Pembroke's last check cleared this morning. James nods, remembering Victoria's final appearance in his office. Her designer clothes couldn't hide her deflated demeanor as she handed over the check. The Foundation taught me what real wealth is, she'd said quietly. I wish I'd learned it sooner. The Bronze Star catches the afternoon light as James reviews the Foundation's new metrics. Not social media engagement or gala attendance, but real measures. Veterans housed, families supported, lives changed. The numbers tell a story of promises kept, of mission remembered. Kevin Rodriguez pokes his head in. Sir, that veteran who was living in his car, he just signed the lease on his new apartment. He wants you to have this. He hands over a weathered challenge coin. Said it's from his unit in Iraq. James adds the coin to his desk alongside other tokens received this week. Unit patches, service ribbons, even a set of old dog tags. Symbols of trust restored, of faith rewarded. The new board meeting starts in 10 minutes, Susan reminds him. First official session with the new charter. The boardroom looks different now. Gone are the expensive artworks and pretentious decor. The walls display photographs of success stories, veterans with keys to new homes, graduates of job training programs, families reunited. Real wealth measured in real impact. Maria Gonzalez calls the meeting to order, her military bearing. Now serving a new kind of service. Around the table sit not socialites and networkers, but people who understand the mission. Veterans, social workers, community leaders. Rebecca and Thomas in their new roles, earning trust through actions rather than words. First agenda item, Maria announces, expanding the housing program to 3 new cities. The discussion that follows focuses not on image or social impact, but on practical needs and real solutions. How many veterans can they help? What support services are needed? How to ensure long-term success? James listens more than he speaks, watching his vision of the Foundation finally come to life. Sarah would have loved this, the honest purpose, the direct impact, the quiet satisfaction of promises kept. Sir? Susan hands him another letter, this one from the veteran whose prosthetic leg the Foundation had provided. He's starting a peer support group at his new apartment complex, wants to help other vets the way he was helped. The ripples spread outward, each act of kindness creating new circles of impact. The Foundation's true power was never in its bank, accounts, or social connections, but in this, the exponential growth of help given and help returned. One more thing, Susan adds with a smile. May's Diner is starting a job training program for veterans. She says breakfast is on the house for any vet who needs it. James tucks Sarah's photograph back into his pocket, next to his Bronze Star. The Foundation has found its way home, back to its true purpose. The glitter and glamour of galas has been replaced by something far more valuable, the quiet satisfaction of real change in real lives. Next agenda item, Maria continues, expanding the medical assistance program. The work goes on, not in the spotlight now, but in the places where it matters most. In the end, that's what real wealth was always meant for. The future plans. Document lies open on the conference table. its pages mapping out the Foundation's next 5 years. It's not filled with social media strategies or gala schedules, but with concrete goals. 5,000 veterans housed, 10,000 provided with medical care, 15,000 supported through job training programs. The numbers are ambitious, Susan notes, reviewing the projections, but with the resources properly allocated now, they're not just numbers, James reminds her gently. Each one is a promise. The morning briefing has become a daily ritual. Rebecca, having found her true calling in program coordination, presents the housing statistics. We've cleared the emergency waitlist, she reports. Now we're expanding to preventive assistance, catching veterans before they face crisis. Thomas Bradford follows with updates on the legal aid program. His legal expertise, once used for corporate maneuvering, now serves veterans navigating complex benefit systems. We've simplified the application process, he explains. No veteran should need a law degree to get help they've earned. Maria Gonzalez, running the housing initiative with military precision, has already begun scaling the program nationally. We've identified partner organizations in 12 cities, she reports, local veterans helping local veterans with our support. The Foundation's new structure emerges from these morning meetings, a network of help built on understanding and experience rather than social connections. Each department head has walked in the shoes of those they serve, either as veterans themselves or through months of direct service work. May's Diner called, Susan interjects with a smile. Their veteran job training program has placed 20 people in permanent positions. They want to expand to other restaurants in the area. James nods, remembering countless breakfasts spent watching the quiet dignity of people helping people. The diner's simple model, training veterans in restaurant work while providing free meals to those in need, has proved more effective than any number of charity galas. Kevin Rodriguez, now running the Education Assistance Program, shares his own update. We've restructured the scholarship criteria. It's not just about grades anymore. We're looking at the whole picture, the whole family. The Future Plans document reflects this new approach. Each initiative builds on the others, creating a support network that catches veterans before they fall and lifts them up when they do. It's the kind of strategic planning James once used in combat, but deployed now for healing rather than harm. There's something else, Susan says, pulling up a news article on her tablet. Victoria Pembroke is selling her mansion. She's donating the proceeds to veteran housing programs, not through us, through the VA directly. Said she wanted to do it anonymously. James allows himself a small smile. Sometimes the lessons of true wealth take root in unexpected places. The Foundation's new offices occupy the same building but feel entirely different. Gone are the pretentious artworks and expensive furnishings. The walls now display maps tracking veteran support programs, success stories, and daily progress reports. The spirit of service permeates every corner. The annual report will look different this year, Rebecca. Notes showing drafts of a simple, clear document focused on impact rather than image. No glossy photos of galas, just the work and its results. Perfect, James responds. The Foundation's story should be told through lives changed, not social events attended. Thomas checks his watch, not the luxury timepiece of his board. Member days, but a practical tool for managing his growing caseload of veteran legal aid. The morning intake sessions are about to start. We've got 15 veterans waiting for benefits consultation. The Future Plans document contains one final section: succession planning. James has ensured the Foundation will never again drift from its mission. Future leaders will come from within, people who've proven their commitment through service, rather than social status. Mr. Miller, a young veteran, appears at the door, directed there by the Foundation's new open-door policy. I heard this is where we can get help. James rises immediately. Come in, son. Tell us what you need. The morning sun streams through windows recently cleared of heavy drapes, illuminating a space transformed by purpose. The Foundation's new direction isn't really new at all. It's a return to original principles, to promises made and kept, to wealth measured in lives changed rather than dollars spent. "Let's get started," James says, both to the young veteran and to another day of real work ahead. The future unfolds, one helped veteran at a time, one promise kept after another, in the quiet satisfaction of purpose remembered and mission restored. The familiar bell chimes as James pushes open the door to May's diner. The morning crowd looks different now. Alongside the regular workers are veterans in training, learning the restaurant trade under May's watchful eye. His usual coffee cup waits at his usual spot, but the diner itself has become something more than just a breakfast place. "Morning, Mr. Miller," May calls out, but there's a new respect in her voice, an understanding of who he really is. Still, she treats him the same as always. Just another regular customer starting his day with eggs, over easy and wheat toast. No butter. "How's the training program going?" he asks, settling into his spot at the counter. "Changed my whole perspective on running this place," May answers, pouring his coffee. "These veterans, their work ethic, their attention to detail, best staff I've ever had." The diner has become a model for the Foundation's local business initiative. 5 other restaurants in the area have started similar programs, creating a network of support that feels more like family than charity. "Your usual, sir?" a new trainee asks, a young woman with the bearing of a former service member. "James," he corrects gently. "And yes, thank you." The morning paper sits beside his plate, but now he reads it differently. Each story about veteran challenges becomes an opportunity for action, not just observation. His notebook fills not with evidence of wrongdoing, but with ideas for new programs, new ways to help. "Did you hear about Victoria?" May asks, sliding his breakfast in front of him. "She's volunteering at the VA hospital now, serving meals, talking to patients. Someone said she sold all her designer clothes." James nods, remembering Victoria's last words before leaving the Foundation. "I finally understand what you meant about real wealth. Sometimes the hardest lessons leave the deepest marks." The diner's walls now display photographs of successful graduates from the training program, veterans who've gone on to open their own restaurants, manage other establishments, build new lives. Real success stories, not social media moments. Susan Chen joins him for coffee, their morning ritual of reviewing the day ahead, now more about possibilities than problems. "The McKinley Street shelter is running at full capacity," she reports, "but in a good way now. Transitional housing working like it should, people moving through to permanent homes." The Bronze Star sits in his pocket, its weight familiar. But different now. It's no longer a reminder of past service, but a symbol of continuing duty. The Foundation's new direction has given his old medals new meaning. Not just honors received, but obligations honored. "Tommy's graduating next month," May mentions proudly. "He wants to work for the Foundation. Says he wants to help create opportunities for other kids like him." The cycle completes itself, those helped becoming helpers, strength flowing back to its source. The Foundation's true power wasn't in its bank accounts, but in this perpetual motion of support and service. Rebecca stops in, no longer documenting every moment for social media, but carrying files of real progress reports. "The housing initiative in Brooklyn is exceeding projections," she says, joining them at the counter. "Maria's team has it running like clockwork." The morning crowd shifts as workers head out, replaced by veterans coming in for the day shift training. Each face tells a story of transition, of battles fought not on foreign soil now, but on the journey back to civilian life. Thomas Bradford arrives for his weekly legal aid clinic, setting up in the diner's back booth. Veterans know they can find help here, not just with jobs and meals, but with the complex paperwork of benefits and services. The diner has become a hub of informal support, more effective than any number of formal charity events. Sarah would "Have loved this," James says quietly, mostly to himself. The photograph in his pocket seems to radiate warmth, as if his late wife's approval flows through the worn paper. The door chimes again. Kevin Rodriguez enters, now in a business suit, rather than a server's uniform, ready for another day managing the Foundation's education programs. "Good morning, Mr. Miller," he says, then corrects himself with a smile. "I mean James." The morning sun streams through the diner's windows, catching the coffee cup in James's hands. The simple ceramic mug holds more than just coffee now. It holds the truth about wealth and power and purpose. Real change doesn't happen in marble ballrooms, but in places like this, where genuine help flows as freely as the coffee. James finishes his breakfast, leaves his usual generous tip, and prepares to head to the Foundation's offices. But first, he looks around the diner one more time, taking in the scene of quiet transformation. The circle completes itself. Every ending becoming a new beginning, every person helped becoming a helper in turn. The new Veterans Support Center rises 6 stories above Brooklyn's streets, its brick facade sturdy and welcoming rather than imposing. James stands before it in his familiar worn uniform, the morning sun warming his shoulders as he prepares to cut the ribbon. This building represents everything the Foundation has become: practical, purposeful, focused on service rather than show. "Ready, sir?" Susan asks, clipboard in hand. The opening ceremony won't be a gala with champagne and caviar, but a community gathering. Veterans and their families fill the plaza, alongside local business owners, social workers, and Foundation staff. May has catered the event, her diner's training program graduates providing the service. Victoria Pembroke stands quietly in the crowd, not at the front now, but present, changed, part of something real. Rebecca manages the event documentation with a simple digital camera, focused on capturing genuine moments rather than social media opportunities. The center will serve over 1,000 veterans annually, Maria Gonzalez announces to the gathered crowd. Housing assistance, medical care, job training, legal aid, everything under one roof. A one-stop resource for those who served. Thomas Bradford steps forward to explain the legal aid office's role, his corporate lawyer polish transformed into genuine advocacy. "No more paperwork mazes," he promises. "No more benefits denied because of missing forms. We're here to serve those who served us." The building itself tells the story of the Foundation's transformation. The ground floor houses May's second diner location, staffed entirely by veterans in training. The medical clinic on the second floor partners with local hospitals. The housing assistance office occupies the third floor, while job training fills the fourth. Legal aid and benefits advocacy take the fifth, and the top floor holds counseling and support services. "Mr. Miller?" A young veteran approaches with his family. "You helped my father get housing last year? Now I'm in the job training and program. I just wanted to say..." James shakes his hand, understanding all the words that don't need saying. This is real wealth, not numbers in bank accounts, but lives transformed, strength passed forward, service honored with service in return. The crowd parts as Kevin Rodriguez leads a tour group through the facility. "Every program here was designed by veterans for veterans," he explains. "We learned that the best help comes from those who understand the journey." Sarah's photograph sits in James's pocket, next to his bronze star. The center embodies everything they had dreamed of, not just helping veterans, but creating a community of mutual support, a place where service members help each other rebuild their lives. The Foundation's new model is being adopted nationwide, Susan reports quietly. 10 cities have requested our guidance in setting up similar centers. Victoria's donation funded the first satellite location in Chicago. James nods, watching the crowd filter into the building. Each person entering represents a promise kept, a mission remembered, a future reclaimed. The foundation's true legacy isn't in its bank accounts or social connections, but in moments like these. Quiet transformations multiplied thousands of times over. "Time for the ribbon cutting, sir," Maria reminds him. James steps forward, scissors in hand. The ribbon is simple blue, not fancy gold or silver. Behind it, the center's motto is engraved in stone: "Service honored through service." As he cuts the ribbon, James thinks of other openings. The McKinley Street shelter with Sarah, May's Diners training program, each new initiative that brought the foundation closer to its true purpose. The applause is warm, but modest, fitting. For a moment of substance rather than show, the center comes to life around him. Veterans meet with housing coordinators. Families consult with legal aid staff. Job training classes begin in modern facilities. The diner fills with people sharing meals and stories. Real work happening in real time, helping real people. "This is it," James says quietly to Susan. "This is what wealth is for." The morning sun streams through the center's windows, illuminating not marble floors or crystal chandeliers, but spaces. Designed for service, for healing, for rebuilding. The foundation's journey has led here, not to glittering ballrooms, but to practical rooms where lives change for the better. James touches the bronze star in his pocket one last time, then steps through the doors of the center. There's work to be done, promises to keep, missions to complete. The true measure of wealth isn't in what you have, but in what you give. And in that measure, James Miller and his foundation have only just begun to count their riches. They said he was just another aging veteran in a worn uniform, living on a pension and driving an old pickup truck. They mocked his scuffed shoes and simple manners at their fancy charity gala. But these wealthy elites had no idea that the man they were, ridiculing, was actually a billionaire who owned the very foundation they were using for social climbing. Now, all across America, his quiet revolution in veteran support is changing thousands of lives, proving that true wealth isn't measured in designer clothes or social media followers. It's measured in lives changed and promises kept. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you.